Hey guys, we are preserving lots of food this month, and over the next 5 days in this video, we will be nailing out a ton of recipes, so I hope you enjoy them. Check it out. I just sliced up a bunch of the Pippin's Golden Honey peppers that I have. They're yellow, red, some are green. I am going to get them in here on our dehydrator so that I can eventually make a spice with them. Probably when the harvests calm down, I will probably do made spice blends. And I'm really excited to try that. This will be the first year of me creating my own spices. I'm super thrilled to do that. And all I did was quarter these and take out the seeds and membranes, as well as washing them prior. All right, so we're just gonna turn this on and let it do its magic. We are making more of that amazing Simple House salsa. This is 1.5 cups of chopped onions. And to this, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of chopped garlic and 1 cup of apple cider vinegar. Okay, we're going to bring this to a boiling and then let it simmer for a couple minutes and add our chopped tomatoes and peppers. This really is like the best salsa I've ever made before, and I would say we definitely would not need to buy salsa ever again because this one tastes so good. In here I had already chopped up the 12 cups of paste tomatoes before I got my onions started. They're simmering now, so I'm going to chop up 2 cups of peppers. It says to use 2 cups of peppers in any mix that you want. Okay, we've got 2 cups. Let's get this in the stick. So we are gonna add our 10 cups of tomatoes. I chopped them up pretty good, but I'm not worried about it being too small because I'm gonna take my immersion blender to this once it's all nice and soft. My 2 cups of peppers. While the tomatoes are coming up to a boil, we're gonna chop some parsley and get our herbs ready. I have taken my immersion blender to it and made the chunks smaller to my family's liking. Now we're gonna add our herbs. So we're gonna add 1 tablespoon of oregano, a tablespoon of sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and 1.5 teaspoons of cumin. We're going to stir this up, and then we're going to also add our parsley and cilantro. And I don't think I cut enough parsley, so I'm just going to add a little bit more. Maybe like a teaspoon more of dried parsley. Isn't this so pretty? It smells so good too. So we're gonna get this to a boil. We're gonna get our water bath canner on the stove, and we are going to get it canned up. Okay, so we have our lids and bands on, finger tight. Everything is labeled. We're gonna put this in our hot water bath canner and process for 15 minutes. After I got the salsa done, I started working on ketchup. I am using the tomato ketchup recipe from the book Food in Jars. With clean tomatoes, I am going to core and chop up 8 pounds. I used this recipe last year and we really enjoyed it. I still get store-bought ketchup for dipping, but when a recipe calls for ketchup, like meatloaf, I like to use my homemade version. Since we used up all of our ketchup supply from last year, I am very excited to get this recipe made. After I get all the tomatoes chopped and measured, I am going to chop up a half a cup of red bell pepper and 1 cup of yellow onions. I've really been enjoying this challenge, but one thing I will be thankful to be done with at some point soon is chopping all of these veggies. I feel like I just stand in the kitchen chopping vegetables every day, but I am very thankful for all the produce that's come out of my garden. It has been very abundant, even in such a dry, not so great growing season. Okay, we're gonna mix all this up. We're gonna add all of our tomatoes so that the tomatoes, peppers, and onions are able to cook on the stove. We wanna bring it to a boil and then reduce the temperature so that it simmers, making the vegetables nice and soft. And that takes about a half an hour. After they get nice and soft, then we'll be able to push them through a sieve or food mill and separate the seeds and skin. But before I do that, I'm going to take my immersion blender because instead of breaking out the food mill for this, I'm just going to put it through my strainer, and the smaller chunks will just get through much faster. Okay, so we're just going to remove the seeds and skin from our ketchup so that we have a consistency we really like. If it doesn't bother you to have them in there, then go ahead and do that. But I don't want seeds in this. So we're just going to real quick get this through, and then we'll be ready for our next step. This was an item that I actually was inspired to get because I saw it on Three Rivers Homestead, where Jessica was using this. And last year I did not have any type of strainer or food mill for my tomato products, and that was fine. I got through just fine, but it has been very nice and helpful to have this and my food mill this year. It really makes such a nicer consistency in your foods. Okay, I'm going to add 2 cups of apple cider vinegar. 3/4 cup of brown sugar. 1 teaspoon of celery seed. A 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. And we are going to stir this up. I'm going to add a very little bit of cloves because it does call for some whole cloves in your spice bag, but I don't have whole. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of mustard seed. As much as we can in here. Okay, we got it. We're gonna hand this over the edge and let that simmer. We'll just save that. But I am just gonna sprinkle a little bit in. And that is allspice because I also do not have whole allspice. I only have it in ground. So now we're just gonna bring this up to a boil and then let it simmer for an hour. We want it to get to the consistency that we want to can it at. So we'll let that go for a bit. And by now these peppers have been dehydrating for quite a while. It is much later in the day. And I'm going to check them to see if they are crispy, and it looks like a lot of them are. So we are going to put these in a jar with a moisture absorber just to keep them from getting any humidity that would ruin them in the jar. So, because remember, these are not getting any added ingredients to keep them from molding or absorbing moisture. So that's what I add just as a precautionary. And then we will be able to make some really nice spices with this later on. Okay, the ketchup is ready to can, so we are going to get these in 1/2 pint jars, leaving a 1/2 inch headspace. You can use whatever size jar that you want to use, but this is like the perfect size for us and what most of my recipes that I would use this for would call for. So that's what I'm going with. And I do have some extras, so I'm just going to get some 1/4 pints in there, just have some variety. But look at all those jars of ketchup. Isn't that so exciting? I mean, most of this product was free to use. My tomatoes, onions, peppers, the onion did not grow in my garden, but the tomato and peppers grew in my garden, and then the rest were all items I already had in my pantry. So this was a really nice way to get some free food on my shelves. Make sure you wipe the rims so that they're not sticky. Get those lids on and bands finger tight as always. This will be water bath can processing for 10 minutes. We'll bring this up to a boil and process for 10 minutes. We are still on day 11, but it is getting late. It's after dinner before we're going to go to bed. I wanted to get this started. This is a 2-day process, and the first day you want to roast your peaches so that they can sit in the brine overnight and do a cold ferment. It was really easy to put together, and then the next day I will be able to finish it up. I'm using the recipe from the all-new Ball Book of Canning and Preserving, and it calls for 2.5 pounds of peaches halved and pitted. Put that in the oven and roast that at 425 degrees. And then we're going to work on getting some dry mustard ground up. So I took my mustard seeds, I'm getting them in the processor and really blending that up, making them nice and fine. Takes a couple good pulses and it is perfect. I did not measure this out yet, but we will need half a cup of it, and I'll just put the rest in my pantry. Okay, I'm gonna get the rest of my ingredients ready so that when the peaches are ready to put in here, I'm good to go. It says it calls for white balsamic vinegar, 6% acidity. This one is 5.4%, so you could use it. But I have, this is the bottle's not weird. I have a rosé balsamic vinegar, which is a type of white balsamic, but it's made with pink wine, rosé obviously. And this is 6%. This one tastes so good, so I'm gonna give it a try. Half a cup of maple syrup. A half a cup of ground mustard. Yum. Ooh! Take some of that out of there. Two tablespoons of brown mustard seed. 1 teaspoon of salt. And I don't drink beer at all, but I got this organic pale ale to go in because it does call for ale. Oh man, these peaches, they smell so good. It's always delicious when you roast food. I don't know what it does, but that caramelization, that nice warm touch, it is just so good. And of course, here I'm being very impatient and taking the skins off before they're completely cooled down because it's getting late and I am ready to get this done and get off my feet.
So I just took a couple forks and scraped the skin off. It came right off, and then just gave it a couple chops and threw it in the pot with the mixture that we just put together.
I am going to turn this on high and we're going to bring this up to a boil. I didn't chop them very well, so I'm just going to smush them a little bit. This is going to go in a food processor, so I wouldn't worry too much. It smells really, really good. It is coming to a boil, so we are gonna lower the heat and simmer for 10 minutes really soon. Just stirring, because it says to stir a lot, so I think you want a pretty good boil, so I'm just gonna wait till it can't get stirred down. Still boiling when I stir, so I'm just gonna throw this on top. Bring it to simmer and let that cook for 10 minutes. We're gonna finish letting this cool and then it'll go into the refrigerator overnight.
All right, we're on to the next day, and we just need to get this in the food processor and puree it. After that, we can bring it to a boil on the stove, and it'll be ready for canning. It's very, very easy to make this. It just takes a little bit of time.
But that looks good. There's no chunks of peaches in here. It is all smoothed up. It smells really good. It kind of smells like a honey mustard kind of thing. But let's get this boiling. Okay, we're gonna put this on high and get it boiling. The smell of this mustard really reminds me of like a nice soft pretzel. Like this smells like it would go really good with that. If you don't have one of these, I highly suggest it. I got this from the dollar store and it really does help with splattering. Okay, so we only want a 1/4 inch headspace. I don't think I'm gonna get, don't think that these are gonna be needed. I love finding new things to make because that means it's one less thing that I will end up buying from the store, knowing I can make it. Especially when it's something you can make a big batch of and put on your shelves or in the freezer, and you don't have to physically make it every single time you go to use it. You know what else this mustard makes me excited for? Thanksgiving, because for Thanksgiving last year did a huge Thanksgiving with my family, and I am very excited to do it again this year. With that, it means a lot of these specialty items I'll be able to bring out, like this peach ale mustard is gonna taste delicious on our charcuterie board. And then this needs to come to a full rolling boil and process for 10 minutes.
These tomatoes are out of control, but in a very good way. And I'm so excited to be able to make the typical sauce that we really like to use and try a bunch of new recipes with them. In these containers, I have them measured out so that I knew how many recipes I could get through with these tomatoes. And while my goal is to start the Italian style tomato sauce, I also figured I should get the tomatoes roasting for my Amish pasta sauce that I like to make, because we need 30 pounds and that's a lot of tomatoes with chopping and roasting. So here I get started. I have to oil this pan up so that I can roast tomatoes. It's a very busy day dealing with tomatoes. As I core and chop these tomatoes up, I am weighing them so that I know how many tomatoes are going on each tray and I get the measurements done properly.
This is 9 pounds of tomatoes, and we are gonna get this roasting. We need 30 pounds of tomatoes. For the recipe, we're gonna use these. Okay, that is 15 pounds in here, so we are halfway with our tomato measurements for the Amish pasta sauce. To make the Italian style tomato sauce, we need to puree 8 cups of fresh tomatoes. It said you'll need about 4.5 pounds. So I cut up 5 pounds and we will get that through the food processor and then measure out 8 cups and get it in our pot.
And this recipe is from the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving on page 363.
Okay, so I'm gonna actually strain the seeds and skin out from the puree. It does tell you to run it through a strainer. So you can see right here we are just below the 8 cup mark, but my puree is still quite moist. So I'm gonna run it through the regular Johnny Appleseed sauce maker. I'm gonna have to set that up anyway for my other recipe. I probably should have just done that from the start. All right, so we're gonna get our 8 cups into our saucepan. We do need to get our other ingredients put, so we're not gonna turn this on yet. We're just gonna put this in. We're also gonna pull out the tomatoes from the oven because they are done roasting. This looks beautiful. So those pans are good. They need to cool down. We are gonna get other ingredients added to our sauce on the stove. We need to grate
onions because we need finely chopped, and we need 2/3 of a cup. Two-thirds a cup of finely chopped onion or grated. That's what I did. What does that mean? Starting to get to me. 2/3 a cup of celery, a little bit less in here. That's fine as long as you don't have more than you're supposed to. A half a cup of carrots. We're gonna turn this on. And we're gonna get 2 cloves of garlic in here. All right, so while that is heating up, I am going to get these tomatoes through. I am gonna pause and take a quick lunch break. It is 4:30. I had my lunch break, a wonderful BLT, and caught up on some things. I sorted through the last of the tomatoes, and you can see over here, this is what we have left. So most of them need to ripen more, minus the cherry tomatoes, which are on the other end. And I'm sure we'll get more when we go pick them from the garden today, because we've been picking every day. We have our sauce warming back up, getting ready to add our seasonings, because we have all these to add. I also need salt and pepper. What we're gonna do right now is we're gonna bring this back up to a boil. Then we're gonna add all our spices. I'm gonna add my bay leaf for now. I'm not going to can the bay leaf in there. I'm going to remove it, but I wanted to add some flavor, more flavor than is specified. In the recipe, you cannot alter the vegetables, the acidity, any of those types of things when you're water bath canning. However, you can add spices in any form that you like. You do want to be careful not to over spice your foods, but there is a recipe right next to the Italian style tomato sauce that I observed, and comparing some of the seasonings in the seasoned tomato sauce, I wanted to add some of those to my Italian style tomato sauce, because it does not include oregano or bay leaf, which I do want to include in mine. I also was thinking I might add just a tad of paprika, because we love paprika. While this is boiling, we're gonna add our spices. We're gonna add 4 tablespoons of lemon juice, 2 teaspoons of salt, do about 3/4 of oregano, 3/4 a teaspoon of oregano, a half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper. I'm going to do a half a teaspoon of paprika and a half a teaspoon of pepper. We're gonna stir this up. It smells so good. The carrots and celery really smell good in this. We are gonna boil hard for about 15 minutes. So while this gets started, before I need to really stir it nonstop, I'm gonna get my water bath canner ready. I don't know if I'm gonna do my whole water bath canner though, because that is really big. I wish I doubled this recipe. That's all right. We should get 3 to 4 pints, I think. So we will use the electric canner. we're gonna get our jars in. Okay, so this recipe makes 3 pints. I suggest if you're going to make it, try to double it because canning 3 pints is like really silly. I wasn't paying attention to that. We want this on exhaust and we're gonna low pressure cook for 35 minutes. It is a water bath recipe. This is basically equivalent to a steam canning, but this is how you have to do it in an electric canner if the jars are not completely submerged, which they are not. Hey guys, it's day 14 and we are back to green beans. So I'm chopping and gonna get those pressure canned today. Now it's all about the green beans. We need to get these canned so that none of them rot in my fridge. We've definitely had our share of fresh green beans and we've been canning for when we do not have the availability to have fresh green beans anymore. So I put a half a teaspoon of salt in each jar. I'm filling up those jars with hot water and debubbling because there will get air trapped when you have chunks of food in the jars. So after that, I get the lids on, put our bands on finger tight, and these are going to be ready to go in the pressure canner. This is a really easy recipe or way of familiarizing yourself with a pressure canner. If you've never used one before, I highly suggest starting with green beans or carrots because they are very easy to pressure can. I have been working really hard to get as much as I can canned up, and you can see from this video that there are 7 ways to do that. And if you haven't seen my videos from the rest of the month, I have 2 other pantry videos showing ways that I stocked my shelves, and my future videos from this challenge this month will be separate recipes. So stay tuned because we will have a lot of information on each recipe and what I do the rest of the month. See you soon. Bye.